And you're going to let this video see the light of day?
I might. Depends on whether this works. This is a transfer case out of a Ford Explorer. What, a 90...
It's a 96 or a 97. I think it's a 96.
This has what's apparently the classic problem for these, where it grinds a little bit on deceleration. It turns out that what's happening is that this sliding selector ring here, you can see those teeth are kind of chewed down, and you wouldn't think that's enough to matter, but this doesn't engage by very much on that little gear inside of there, down in there. And so what's happened is that the fork mechanism gets sloppy because these holes in the magnesium case get all hogged out, and it doesn't hold it up quite as well, and so it's not held all the way up, and it starts to skip, and that's where it gets all of this wear on it. I don't think this truck has been in 4-low more than maybe once or twice in its entire life, so yeah, it didn't get that from... It didn't acquire that wear pattern, honestly. So we have decided to bodge this thing back together, because at this point this is just an around town kind of rig. It's probably never going to see, well, it's definitely never going to see low range again now.
And this isn't a car we ever need to be proud of at any point.
No. Well, it's a 96 or 7 Ford Explorer.
Yeah, it wasn't going to have much pride anyways, in our opinion.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've taken out the ramp thing here that turned and moved the fork up and down, and hammered a tapered roller bearing into it so the oil can't leak out through the hole. And what we're going to do is take this, we've kind of cleaned it a little bit, slide it in there, and then take the welder and make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And it won't need any kind of color or fork or anything, and that way we're welding the two worn parts together and they can't go anywhere. So yeah, we got to try and weld in between there. There is a little problem with that. You can see where the bushing rides, and you can see how little space there is between that and the gear it engages with. So yeah, we can't really weld up from there. We have to weld down into that gap.
Down in the valley.
Yeah, and we don't want to get BBs in the low range. It won't be used ever again, but it's still going to be turning, because we can't figure out how to get it out without pulling an oil seal. We don't want to buy parts for this thing. And we also don't want to get it down in that needle bearing. So we're going to be stuffing it with rags, oil-soaked rags that I'm going to be welding next to. So, also, isn't this a magnesium case?
It's either aluminum or magnesium. I don't remember which one. Do you have any vinegar?
Well, it's gone about as well as you'd expect.
Yeah, so what we managed to do is put a bead of weld quite a bit farther up than we really meant it to be. And
yeah, the big welder is not really a precision tool.
Yeah.
At least not in our hands.
Yeah, so now we're having to clean up our mistakes with the Mistake Remover 9000. Wrong thing too, electric boogaloo.
Yeah, so we had all kinds of fun with that last bit, mostly due to me accidentally welding two splines together in a place where another spline had to slide between them. That was fun to correct. We just cut off a spline. So, yeah, it's in there now, and we're thinking, because we still don't trust this thing any further than we can throw it, we're just going to put a little bit of weld along in there. So this thing is never really going to come apart again.
But by golly, it'll never have to come apart again. And of course, now Elliot's filming, so we can say, no, I never did any welding. Look, see, I've got footage of Zach welding.
Well, it still turns, that's a good sign. At the very least, it's not going to move. Not Borg-Warner's finest right here.
No, not our finest either.
Okay, well that was easy. We just put it all back together, put the chain back on. Yeah,
So
I'm joking.
There are some projects where you invent whole new swear words.
And whole new problems for yourself. It turns out you can't put the sprocket on with the chain if you can't take that out. You can't take this out anymore because we've
Welded it in place.
Yeah, we've gone and welded it into place. So
we had to remove this shaft, which means we had to remove the big circlip inside there. It was easier to access when you didn't have the chain there, but we don't have a proper pair of circlip pliers. We had a chintzy pair that...
Yeah, my crap hazard freight ones didn't work, and the extension I tried to weld on didn't work, and we ended up using a pry bar. But it's back on, god damn it.
It works, and we'll have four-wheel drive.
Anyway, yeah, this might just work. This had better just work. Okay, well, we've got it all put back together here. Well, almost all put back together. Here we go. We decided to add a little warning because this Ford will end up at a wrecking yard at some point. It would suck if somebody grabbed this transfer case thinking, oh, it's probably better than the one I've got. Okay, well, we've got her all bolted up properly, and we've got warnings in 3 languages now. And one in the universal language of pirates will attack if you try to use this case for something. And we can turn it over without it making terrible clicky-clacky noises, so hopefully we've done this close enough to write. So next up, I guess we get to carry it out to the Blazer. Then throw it in a Ford and see if the Ford drops its everything as soon as you put it in gear.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Okay, well, another day, another dickerage. We're about to put this thing in, but we got to thinking about that bearing roller I tapped in there, and
we were having a bit of an issue of conscience. Because if that roller bearing was to fall out, it would almost certainly fall directly into the big drive chain, which would not end well at all. The good news is that we think we should be able to use the old shaft to drive the tapered roller bearing out, shake the transfer case
till it comes out the drain hole.
Our next idea was we discovered a penny will actually fit and seal almost perfectly against a step in there. And I was really happy that it fit really well until Elliot said, how we get that out?
Yeah, because we kind of got to get it out to get to the
tapered roll bearing that's still installed. Yeah, there we go.
Hey!
Hey!
Poor Abe Lincoln. The last thing he needed was another hole in his head.
Oh, jeez.
What, too soon?
Too soon, man. Too soon. Of course, now I can't get it off the center punch. There we go. Oh, this should go up on a wall of shame or something somewhere.
Yes, it should. See if we can chop that pin out of there now.
And more good news, I've got an extra penny to stick in there once we're ready to get this thing.
You mean we don't have to hammer this one flat and JB weld the hole?
No, we can use all new parts. Okay, so now the next fun part is we've got a hammer on this thing, and this has 2 very powerful clock springs on it.
And I remember the write-up saying that right there is brittle.
Ah.
We'll be back in a moment. Okay, well, the clock spring put up surprisingly little resistance. Zach is currently trying to break a steering wheel.
Damn it. Oh well. We're going to see if I can hammer out the tapered roller bearing without breaking the case at all.
Yeah, then see if we can shake it out, because if we can't, we need to open this fucker up again.
That's going to be a pain.
Which at this point requires air tools.
Which I don't have.
Hey,
okay.
The sound of victory, or defeat, we're not sure which yet.
The sound of progress.
Yes.
Whether it's progress forward or backward remains to be seen.
Yeah, it's the sound of gress. We don't know if it's progress, regress, or congress at this point.
I don't think it's congress, because we're actually getting somewhere. But
yeah.
The,
Okay, so let's pull out the drain and the fill and shake this and see what comes out. Of course, what's going to happen now is we'll turn this thing upside down and shake it. A part we don't recognize will come out.
Or even worse, a part that we do recognize will come out.
Well, truly the gods of Dickereth... Clearly the gods of Dickerage have... Fuck.
Truly the gods of Dickoreth, the elder gods of Schmelagafoth.
Okay, the pin's out. That was actually easier than we thought.
It was honestly harder to just get this movie clip started than it was to...
Yeah, we were trying to do this whole Gods of Dickerage routine and neither of us could fucking talk. So anyway, the pin's out.
Yeah, let's just hope this project isn't going to nickel and dime us to death.
Okay, there we go.
I'm going to go ahead and just lather more epoxy on top of him.
Yeah, seal them in there, but good. Okay, we got a penny glued in there, we got some epoxy, we got some silicone, and we're putting the actuator back on now. It doesn't do anything, but, you know, it plugs the hole.
Makes it, you know, just makes it look like it's, we haven't done anything.
Yeah, no, we haven't done anything at all. And probably makes it so the light on the dashboard doesn't come on, so that's nice.
In theory, this should only take 2 quarts of regular old, you know, Mercron, Dextron, whatever's lying around cron.
Yeah, Omicron.
This is Dextron 3, yes? Yes. Okay. I might throw a little bit more than 2 in, just because the way we're going here, we're filling, and then once we've got it back up into place, we're just going to drain the
excess.
Drain the excess from the fill plug.
Because it's easier than putting in, either figuring out the exact right amount to put in, or filling it once it's in the car.
Yeah.
So, pro tip, if you're filling one of these outside of the vehicle, remember that there's a breather. We totally did, of course.
Yeah, this fluid was there before.
Yeah, that drip there just migrated up from the cardboard. It's funny how it does that.
Yeah, it's weird. It's one of those weird mystery spots, you know, gravity uphill, that sort of thing. Just only in that one specific spot we have the breather over. It's weirdest thing.
Yeah, maybe we should have done this somewhere else. Remember, when installing a transfer case, make sure you've got a proper transmission jack on hand.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it doesn't have any weeble wobble to her hardly at all. This is going to be fun. Also, if you can see it, that little plug right there is apparently all that's keeping training fluid from pouring on us, and of course we need to pull it before we put the case back in. I suspect this is going to go swimmingly.
This is actually working surprisingly well.
Okay, and we've got the transfer case in, and it's not leaking, which is good. Okay, the transfer case is bolted back in, both drive shafts are in, and now Zach just needs to figure out the electrical plugs, one of which still does something.
Yeah. The speedo sensor.
Yep. Senses if there's a speedo in the immediate vicinity and puts up a warning light on your dashboard.
Don't you just love it when little bits of sand and gravel go up your nose? I might, before we take it out of the lot, I might just give it a rev before we're out of, you know, pushing territory.
Yeah.
Well, let's take this thing down the road and back. Maybe out on the highway to test the conditions where it was grinding before.
Yeah, make sure we actually fixed it. Alright. Yeah, I know, let's go sit in the street with the dog.
Nerds! That's Zeb and Shannon.
We just drove it around and it didn't make any terrible whirring sounds like the fan was eating the radiator, which it was doing before apparently. And yeah, 4x4 still seems to work. Everything seems to be working as it should, except low range, because we didn't try to put it in low range because it doesn't have low range anymore. But everything else is good. So yeah, this is how to not do it. How not to do it. But
we did it anyways.
We did it anyway, and we seem to have gotten away with it.
So far.
Yeah. And so, the Ford lives to fight another day.
Die another day.
Yep. Sweet. Fucker only runs downhill! That's the antenna so that Ford can radio it and tell it it's time to brake.